Hey everybody, and welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to be looking at the other TI-99 4A and see what we can do to fix its issues. So let's get started. Alright, so here's my second TI-99 4A computer. And if you haven't seen my last video, I took a look at this TI-99 4A that had keyboard problems, and I repaired it to a fully functional state. So I would recommend going ahead and watching that video before watching this one. This is the regular TI-99 4A. The other one I just showed you was a cost-reduced version that looks a little different. But other than its appearance, it's a completely identical unit to the other one. Now the problem with that TI-99 4A is apparent right when you first turn it on, so I'm going to show you a little comparison between the one I already fixed and the one we're going to be fixing. So if I turn this one on, you can see on the monitor it comes up with a perfectly okay image. The colors are all nice and vibrant, and there's nothing wrong with this image. But if I plug this computer in and turn it on, look at what the image looks like. The color is completely gone, and there's these weird vertical stripes going down the entire image. I don't know if you can see it from that angle, but it's obviously not right. The computer works totally fine otherwise. Like, the keyboard's good, I can run programs on it. The cartridge slot works totally fine. I've run some programs through there. Like, I'm able to run a very simple, basic program on it. And I did figure out what the key combination was to get out of a program like this that's running. It's function 4, and that does the break command that I was wondering about in the video where I repaired the other TI. I also figured out that if you do function equals, it resets the computer. So that's obviously a reset combination. So that's cool. So yeah, this is the issue we have to fix. This is the only issue this computer has. Now I guess we start taking it apart. Let's do it. All right, so here's the bottom of the computer. And if you saw my video where I repaired the other TI, you'll have seen that it was pretty easy to get the entire machine apart. This one's similar, but it is different, and the layout is not as nice inside these black models, and I will show you that as we take it apart. So to get the bottom cover off on this one, it's a very similar process. You have to take out the 7 screws on the bottom, just like the other one. But on this one, you have to pull off the little power switch thing here. Otherwise, the cover will not separate. So that has to come off. But now the back cover should be free, and I should be able to lift it off just like I did on the other computer. And there we go. So yeah, if you saw my last video, you'll see that this layout is pretty similar, but there are some differences. So the first thing we're going to do is take off this little power supply board here. And one big difference with this computer versus the later beige models they made was that the screws they used, they weren't all the same size. So this one has different screws for different components. Like, this is the one for the back cover, that's one of them. And this is one of them for that little power supply board. So as you can see, that was one of the improvements they made on the later models. They made all the screws the same size, so you don't have to separate the screws into different piles. That comes out just the same. Move this connector here. And then remove the tape that I have holding this down. And that works too, ripping the tape. So there's the power supply board for this TI computer model. This one's actually got a LED on it, letting you know the computer is on. It's got a massive capacitor right there. 3,300 microfarad at 35 volts. And this little plastic thing right here is part of the power switch mechanism. It slides back and forth. This just lifts right out. So here's where the big differences start. It mostly has to do with the layout of the motherboard. And as you can see, the keyboard does look a little bit different because it's a different keyboard model. So to actually remove the motherboard on this model, it's the same, I believe. I haven't had this thing apart in a long time. I believe it's the same 3 screws here. I think this screw and then these just hold on this metal shield to the bottom. So let's see. Let's take a look. There we go. So yeah, this thing is a little different. Instead of just lifting the whole thing out and unplugging the keyboard, this one you kind of have to hinge like this because the keyboard connector is a bit different. And so I have to get in there from this side and pull it out that way. and now it's free. And if I wanted to remove the keyboard, I would take out these 4 screws, but since the keyboard in this machine works totally fine, we can just take this and set it aside. So here's the motherboard assembly from this computer, and if you saw the video where I repaired the last one, it looks totally different. The other one does not have a shield above the top of the motherboard like this one does. So there's a little bit more you have to do to get to the motherboard of this computer. And the first thing we have to do is remove the cartridge slot header. It's just hooked into a connector on the motherboard, so it should just pop right out like that. And now what we're gonna have to do is remove these 2 nuts and this one. There we go. So now that those nuts are out, I should be able to push the screws out from the back, or at least maybe get them out from the other side. There we go. So there's the screws. You can see they're quite long. So after those are out, now I have to remove these little metal kind of clamping things. They kind of just hold the 2 shields together. And then the last thing before I can take this top shield off is to remove these 2 screws. These hold on a little piece of metal underneath, and it acts as a heat sink for the video chip, which is right under here. Okay, so those are out. I should be able to remove this top shield. And there we go. So there's the little piece of metal I was talking about. And I actually replaced the thermal compound that was underneath this metal, so it's got brand new thermal paste under it to keep that video chip cool. So taking a look at the motherboard, everything looks totally fine. There's no evidence that someone was inside this thing before me. I can tell that no one's done anything. No one's removed any chips or done any sort of modification to the board. This all looks factory. I can actually take the bottom shield off like this. Then we can have a look at the back of the motherboard. And you can see there's no evidence that anyone's messed with anything in here. This all looks completely normal. So there is hope that this problem is a very simple fix. There is a potentiometer right there, and it's next to a crystal oscillator that I believe is for the video circuitry. So there is hope that if I turn this potentiometer, it might restore the color back to the image, because maybe it's not supplying enough voltage or it's just in the wrong position somehow. So I'm gonna get a little flathead screwdriver and turn that and see if that makes any difference whatsoever to the image. All right, so I have a little setup here. I have the computer plugged into mains voltage in the socket here, and that's going through the DC converter board to the motherboard. I have the video cable plugged in right there. So when I turn it on, we should get an image. And we do. So what I'm gonna do is take this little flathead screwdriver. It should be small enough. Oh, it's actually slightly too big. Good thing I have multiple screwdriver sets. There's definitely something smaller in here. That's too small. Perfect. That is perfect. I'll put it in the little screwdriver head. There we go. Now I should be able to turn this. And nothing seems to work. I was afraid of that. I don't remember where the home position was, where it was at. I think it was here. But yeah, that did not do anything to improve the image, and I was pretty confident that it wasn't going to do that. It wasn't going to fix it, so that was not the solution. So now that the board's been on for a few minutes, I'm going to just feel these chips just to see if there's anything that's like overly hot, because that could indicate that there's a short on the board somewhere, or one of these chips has failed. This is the main CPU. I know it's working because the computer is able to work. Obviously, this chip is designed to get hot because it has a heatsink and it is warm. Feel the system ROMs. Those aren't warm at all. Feel the main system memory. Those feel fine. Yeah, none of those chips are super hot at all. So I just had a thought that I don't know why I didn't have before, but I thought to myself, what if the main video chip is the problem? So I took apart my other beige TI, the one that I fixed in the previous video, and I popped out its video chip. This one has a different heatsink on it, but it's the same video chip and it should work perfectly in that TI there. So I'm going to take the video chip out of the motherboard on that one, and we'll do a chip swap and see if that fixes anything. So there's the video chip socket, and I have to make sure that when I stick this other video chip in, that I stick it in the correct direction. Otherwise, I could kill the chip because it does matter which way it goes in. And it is actually the reverse orientation on this motherboard, so I have to make sure. This one actually has a heatsink that just slides off. There's no thermal compound. So on the other TI, pin 1 was up here on the top of this socket. On this one, it's down at the bottom. It's marked with a little white arrow. And pin 1 of this chip is up here, so I have to make sure that the little notch on the chip here faces down like that. So that's the way it'll go into the socket. And there we go. There's the video chip installed. And I'm going to leave the heatsink off of it this time because I'm only going to have it running for probably about 30 seconds, so it should be fine. It's not going to overheat or anything. So what do you guys think? Was the video chip a problem? Let's see. Oh, it was not the problem. Okay, so now I know the original video chip works totally fine. So that's good news. Now I should point out that way before I made this video, I came across this article where a person was trying to troubleshoot their TI-99 4A, and it looks like they have the exact same thing that I have on mine. And apparently what this person did was they determined that their video display processor chip, the one that I replaced, this chip, was working fine. And so what they did was they found another forum post. I have no idea where that post is, but apparently they said that the little crystal that I was trying to adjust earlier with the potentiometer, that was bad. And so this person tried the same thing. They ordered a new crystal, they popped it in, and as you can see, it fixed their computer. So I think what I'm going to do is desolder the crystal that's on the computer that I'm trying to fix, and I'm going to take the crystal off of my working computer because it has the exact same crystal used to generate the video signal. So I'm going to go ahead and swap those over. Okay, so somehow I forgot to hit record during my desoldering process, but I did desolder both of the crystals. This is the one that was from this computer, and this is the one from my working computer. So I'm going to put this one back into there, and we'll see if we have working color afterward. Pop it in just like that, and we'll go ahead and solder it in on the other side. There we go. That crystal is now soldered in there. All right, everybody, what do you guys think? New crystals installed right there. Let's turn it on, see if we have working color. We do! Oh, we do! So that's it. That's the problem. So I'll have to order another one of these crystals to fix this computer. My computer had the exact same problem that the other person had on that article online. That's awesome. So yeah, I'm glad it wasn't like one of the custom chips on the board or the video chip that was the problem, because I'm sure those are harder to find nowadays. I'm glad it's something as simple as a crystal oscillator, so I can probably easily find another one that's the same frequency and drop it in, and it should work totally fine. So yeah, that's fantastic. Let's put a cartridge in and just see how that looks. In order to do that, I'll have to put the cartridge header into the connector here. Then I can just kind of pop it in like this. I imagine it's going to stay. It puts a little weight on that connector, but I think it'll still detect it. Let's see. Yep, it does. So I put in a cartridge called The Attack. I think it's a game. I haven't used these cartridges in a long time, so I don't remember, but let's press 2 for The Attack. Yeah, it is a game. Press any key to begin. So this game must have had some sort of little template that went above the keyboard, because see how it says press aid for rules? One of the number keys must be the aid button for this game. So I'll press any key one more time. Let's see which one it is. 1 through 4 is the level selection. So let's see, 5. 5 did something else. I don't know how to play this game, nor do I know what I'm doing. Oh, I see. The arrow keys on the keyboard here is moving this little ship right here. Okay, so I don't know the rules. I'm going to restart and see if I can find the aid button. Press aid for rules. Wasn't that key? So what is the objective of this game? I couldn't tell you. All I know is that I can move that little ship with the keys that correspond to the arrows on the keyboard. There's no fire with the space bar. Oh, enter. That fires. So I see there's little enemies here. How do I... Oh, I just died. Okay, so what I'm wondering is, what do those numbers mean? I got one of them. The arrow keys is E, S, D, and X, so it's kind of hard to move around because it's a very non-standard layout. Do I shoot these little things? I do. That does... Okay. It's funny, the whole game freezes when the animation plays for when I destroy something. It freezes for a good second before it comes back. And I can't fire while I'm moving. It's only when I'm still. And I'm noticing, I just noticed this now, but the things that have, the little blocks that have numbers on them are going away. So what I think is happening is they're counting down, and then they go away. Like that one just went away, those two. So they must just go away after a while. Maybe they're barriers. Oh, I just realized, I think those little things like these up here in the corner, I think those grow into these bigger ones here that I have to shoot. I haven't been paying attention, but I think that's what's happening. I died. Oh, and then all the little ones go away after that. So I guess I'm on to the next level now. Press any key. So yeah, as you can see, all those barriers now, they start out at 9, so they must just count down and then go away. If only this keyboard used a standard arrow key convention, but keep in mind this was the 80s, and there were a lot of different keyboards back then, so this was not uncommon at all to have a weird layout for certain keys. I actually have never played this before because I always thought that all of the cartridges I had for these TIs, I thought they required a joystick, but I guess this one doesn't. So this is actually the very first game I've ever played on one of these TI computers. I'm getting a little better at this now. Oh, that was close. Alright, well, I think you guys get the idea. We got this thing working, and it's playing a game. So, there you guys have it. We managed to fix this TI-99 4A by replacing the crystal oscillator that was needed to drive the video signal. So now, with this machine fixed, that means that both of my TI-99 4As now work 100% perfectly. I hope you enjoyed watching me repair this computer. I have a big project coming up that I'm really excited to start. It involves a repair of a very rare video game console, so I hope you guys will stick around for that. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.